Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Desktop Discourse from Student Diversity and Inclusion. My name is Angel Paige Snagowski. I am here with Marissa Jones and Mikey, whose last name is not in the thing. So all they, thems. And today we are talking about, I forgot what I was about to say. Talking about mindfulness and interpersonal relationships. Mm-hmm. So we all have a couple questions, and we're just going to bounce around and answer said questions. And since I'm already talking, I'm going to go ahead and start. My first question is, when does it become difficult to be mindful?
I was thinking about this question, and honestly, right now, it's been pretty difficult for me to be mindful. In terms of the semester, I'm kind of having difficulty staying in this moment and staying calm and because I'm just thinking ahead too much. So it's been pretty difficult for me to be mindful during this time. This is my last semester, all of our last semesters, and it's the busiest semester of my life. So right now I'm still struggling to be mindful, and I'm trying to kind of stay present in this moment. But I'm just thinking ahead a lot. So I guess when I have a lot of work to do, or a lot of big things coming in the future, searching for a job after school, everything like that, it's been hard to stay mindful.
Yeah, I totally agree with Marissa, honestly. I find myself thinking about the job search and all of that. Everything that is gonna kind of rush on after graduation pretty often. I think that when I get really overwhelmed, speaking more generally, that is when I tend to have a much more difficult time staying mindful. I don't know if this is something that happens with everyone, but I'll get thoughts that kind of clip in and out of my brain and intersect with other thoughts. And it's sometimes it's a real struggle to keep one coherent train of thought, which to me is part of mindfulness, being able to kind of let go of all of the thoughts, or at least not attach to one individual one. Yeah, so when I get overwhelmed, which I currently am, it's hard to stay mindful.
I agree. Right now is a very difficult time to be mindful. And since we're particularly talking about interpersonal relationships, I have to really think about if I can be mindful in this relationship right now, or if I could take a break from this relationship, not necessarily oh, we need to break up, or oh, we need to stop talking. It's just I cannot mentally be here for you right now. And I guess in that way, we are being mindful, it just in a different way, of ourselves. Because I know for a fact, I'm an acting major, but I'm also a poetry minor, and I'm also an American Sign Language minor. I do a lot of creative direction, and I just put up all these exhibits, and it's okay, I don't have time to do a show right now. I don't have time to come chill out with y'all for 5 hours when I could be recording these videos. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard to be mindful in this time, because it's also could be hurtful to someone else or come off the wrong way to someone else. But it's a matter of it's either my mental health or making you feel happy. You know what I'm saying? So that's where it's becoming difficult for me. And then I guess I'll ask my second question, which is, what do you do to practice mindfulness?
Personally, I do breathing exercises before I go to bed. I find that so a lot of the time as I'm falling asleep, I will go through songs will pop into my head. A lot of songs will pop into my head. So anytime I notice that I've got a song stuck on loop, I will take note, that's the first song that I've gotten stuck in my head tonight. And then I will try and redirect my attention to my breathing. I think I've gotten as far as somewhere between 7 and 9 songs in a night since I started doing this. But yeah, I also go to like a group meditation meeting on Saturdays and Sundays, so that's nice. It's all socially distanced, but it's cool.
Yeah, I like try as much as I can to like meditate and just kind of like be in the present moment when I can. There's a lot of times where like lately I don't really have like the time to even do that because like I'm juggling, like I have like really intense classes this year. They're all like writing intensive and I have like 3 internships right now and like um so I'm juggling a lot, but like when I can, when I do have that moment, I try and like meditate and just kind of like let all these thoughts go. Um and just like do my best to do that. At the end of like the night, I try and like take a break from all my work, like let myself like just take a break from all of that, watch something or listen to music, like Mikey said. Um, and that does like help me practice mindfulness and like calm down and I guess like focus mostly on myself. Um, like at the end of like a day, just like letting myself like be like not forcing myself to do work because my brain's like fried at that point. Um, so like not forcing myself to do things that like I don't have like the mental capacity to do at the time.
For myself personally, I do try to meditate every day. I'm a big morning person, so I do a lot of stuff in the morning to prep myself. I also like, I don't know if you guys watch Adventure Time, but there's this episode. Y'all remember there's an episode where like this grass giant comes in and he's like so mean, and so he keeps singing the song empathy, empathy, put yourself in the place of me. I think about that all the time when I'm in other relationships. Like I sing that to myself and I'm like, would this feel good if I was in this person's shoes and stuff like that. So I try to be mindful in categories like that.
Awesome. So I will ask my questions next. When you're applying mindfulness to your own personal life, what does it look like for you? Like for me, when I am trying to be mindful in my personal relationships, I can definitely relate a lot to like what Angel was talking about, like trying like moment to moment to make sure that like what I'm doing feels good to the other person. Um, but making sure when I can that I'm able to like balance that with like taking care of my own needs.
Yeah, I agree. Like in terms of relationships, it's kind of like what you both said. It's like I feel like I give a lot of myself to other people and I'm constantly like trying to because like I do like giving myself to people and like helping people as much as I can. But there are times when it's like I need to focus on myself and I need to be putting myself first. So I try and like remember that. I try and like remember that like the most important person to make happy is like myself. And the most important person to take care of is myself. Um, so I do try and like remember that when I'm trying to practice mindfulness.
Yeah, just basically what y'all said. It's just a matter of, I think that we are taught mindfulness. We're taught not to be selfish, so it affects us later in life, and we end up in this position of like, why do I do all these things for other people, not for myself? Why do I think all these bad things about myself but not other people? And it comes off, especially when you end up confronting like an abusive relationship or a toxic relationship and you're trying to figure out why this isn't working, is because you have work to do on yourself. So it's a lot of like, you need to balance mindfulness and balance it. And yes, we need to be mindful of other people. That's just what it takes to be a decent human being. But in order to be a happy human being, you have to be mindful of yourself.
My other question is why is it important to you to learn how to be mindful and present in your relationships?
For me, it is important because that is the only way it'll truly function. I think a lot of people, we exist in these weird, strange relationships that we can never really put a label on. We don't communicate about it. It's just like, well, I have this thing with this person and you don't know what's going on. Whether that be romantic, sexual, platonic, whatever you want to call it. But there's no mindfulness of each other's feelings, of each other's communications, of each other's languages. And when you get that, you get this hodgepodge of emotions. That's when anxiety comes in. That's when depression comes in. That's when all these things that you don't like entertaining, and you're confused as to why you feel all these things. And it's because you're not communicating, you're not being mindful of each other. So I'm pretty sure that's, in my opinion, to practice this, that is the only way to truly exist and feel whole in that existence.
Yeah, I agree. I think mindfulness like kind of inherently like needs to be present in a relationship for the relationship to even work. Being mindful of each other, but also being mindful of the way this relationship makes you feel, the way this relationship makes you act, the way how it affects you mentally, like being mindful of like, okay, this relationship is putting me in a really bad place, like mentally, like, and being able to examine that and look at that. And then in like relationships where it's like more healthy, like more beneficial to both people, like being mindful of the other person's feelings and making sure to like look out for them as well, like while focusing on yourself, but also looking out for like, how does this person feel, like how am I being towards them, like is there things I could be doing better. And just I think like for a healthy relationship to work, you have to be mindful of yourself and of each other.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what both of you have said. I think like bringing mindfulness and like really what it comes down to is like presence, like being present with the person that you're with. Is it like in any capacity of relationship, just being present with the person that you're with is like the most kind thing that you can do for them and for yourself. Because I mean, it focuses the most energy towards like giving what you can of yourself and giving yourself like the benefit of like paying attention to your needs. Yeah.
Okay, let me find my questions. Okay. How does mindfulness impact the way that you approach relationships?
Mindfulness helps me determine whether or not I step into the relationship at all. There are just often times where like you can just, and it's like intuition at some point where it's just like, this is not meshing. You communicate in a way that I simply cannot communicate, that somebody else, there's somebody else for you, whether it's friendship, relationship, whatever you want to take it as. And so I think, yeah, that's my biggest one. Being mindful has either stopped or started a relationship with other people.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I would say that, you know how people say that like you wake up every day and you choose to like be in the relationships or like the friendships, etc. When I say relationship, I'm speaking in like the absolute broadest terms, like not necessarily just romantic. But when you wake up every day and you are making a choice to stay in the relationships that you're staying in, and obviously that doesn't account for every situation, but based on the fact that like the relationships that I'm in right now, I could like very healthily and cleanly like leave if I needed to, or wanted to. Like I wake up every day and I choose to be in the relationships that I'm in. Like it's not always that deep. Like some days I feel less like I'm making a choice than others. Like a lot of the days it's just like, oh, this is my life and like I'm happy with the way that it is. But some days it's like, oh, these are the things that I have and I want them. Yeah. Does that make sense? Cool.
I think for me, it's like very important to like when I'm like first approaching a relationship, like determining if I want like a more serious relationship with this person and like relationship in any capacity. Being mindful is like very important for me to understand like if this relationship is going to be good to me, if it's going to hurt me, or if it's going to help me. Um, and I think at the point I'm at right now, I have much healthier relationships than I've had in the past. Um, and so I'm kind of starting to learn like what a healthy relationship should look like and like warning signs and like red flags. Um, so I think like for me, it's very important to be mindful like before I just like jump right into a relationship. It's very important for me to like feel out like, is this something that's gonna make me more upset? Is it something that's gonna make me happy? And just being mindful and like looking at how I'm feeling when I'm approaching a relationship and how this like makes me feel and how it makes me act. Like, do they influence me negatively? Do they make me make bad decisions that like aren't true to myself? So just like approaching any relationship before I let it get like too serious, with that mindset. And then my last question is, in what ways do you utilize mindfulness as a tool in relationships?
I feel I use, oh, I'm sorry, Mikey.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I like to use mindfulness as like a returning point of like at the end of the day, I can come back to this and figure out what's going on in any type of relationship. And I want to just point out that like family relationships are not exempt from this conversation. Sometimes in between mothers, fathers, sisters, cousins, whatever, mindfulness is not there. And sometimes you need to cut that cord or you need to figure something out. I just want to make sure that people know this conversation does not exempt family members. But yeah, I like to use it as like the solid foundation of like, okay, if in this cloud a mess we call life, I can return to this to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think being mindfulness, being mindful is like returning to like my center of self, like the core emotional center, emotional and logical center, honestly, for me, because it just provides me with like the ability to be present as much as possible, and like it provides me the ability to like know what I'm like truly feeling as opposed to like getting too in my head about it, because I'm able to focus more actively like on the moment, and how like each passing moment makes me feel.
Yeah, I think I agree with what both of you said, especially in terms of like family relationships. I think there's this assumption with your family, whether that be like your immediate family, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, anyone that you consider family, that you have to love them because they're family, and that you have to maintain a relationship because they're family. And I think mindfulness has really helped me like put into perspective, specifically with some of like my cousins, um, that this is not like a healthy relationship. This is not a relationship I want to continue. This is someone I want to not have a relationship with anymore in any capacity. Um, I think mindfulness and like really being able to recognize how I'm feeling and how this relationship makes me feel, has helped me a lot in like learning that just because we're related doesn't mean they have to be family to me. Um, and I think just practicing mindfulness and really like paying attention to how I'm feeling, um, and how I'm feeling like presently has just like helped me a lot with being able to understand, and use as a tool mindfulness when I'm trying to understand if a relationship is healthy for me or not.
Yeah, I just want to add that since you said being mindful in the present, I think it's also important and it's okay to go back and think about those past moments too where you felt iffy. That's like really important to reflect. So I think mindfulness also involves a lot of reflection. So I just wanted to point that out too, since Marissa brought that up. But yeah, thank you guys for coming to this new edition of Desktop Discourse on mindfulness and interpersonal relationships. You can follow us on Instagram at ColumbusShySDI. And yeah, thank you guys and have a good day.